This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, we now bring you a discussion on Finance Minister's press briefing on economic issues. The participants are Shishir Sinha, economic analyst, and Ruchika Chitravanshi, journalist.
Today, the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has announced a slew of measures ahead of the festive season to spur consumer spending and the overall sentiment amongst the people ahead of Diwali and the Durga Puja and so many festivals that are lined up in front of us. Mr. Shishir Sinha, can you take us through some of the important announcements that have been made today by the Finance Minister?
The first and foremost announcement is about the LTC, which is the Leave Travel Concession, which many of us in the organized sector and the government employees, they get that. Normally, when you have to take the benefit of LTC, you need to present tickets. Now, the problem is that during COVID, people are not traveling. So, getting the benefit of LTC is not possible in the absence of tickets. So, what you can do now? You can take the money, spend on something. That is the scheme that is termed as the cash voucher scheme. So what you have to do now? You have to take some money, say rupees 100 as the LTC. You have to spend 300 rupees along with that's the amount equivalent to 10 days of leave encashment. And if you are able to do so on some goods which are having in the category of 12% plus GST rate slab, you will be eligible to get the benefit. So in nutshell, you don't have to travel to get the benefit of LTC. You can use that money in buying some goods, say if you are planning to buy a car and if your LTC eligibility is say rupees 1 lakh, if you are spending 3 lakh rupees, you will get tax benefit of rupees 1 lakh. So this is one particular thing. The only condition which may discourage people not to opt this scheme is you need to spend 3 times of the LTC eligibility. I think there we need to really think about how to change that. And the other thing is that you will get the tax benefit only on the deemed fare. Deemed fare means the original eligibility. The government has also given the table for that, what kind of deemed fare will be applicable. Suppose you are eligible for business class airfare, the deemed fare will be rupees 36,000. If you are eligible for economy class, then applicability will be 20,000 rupees. And if you are entitled to rail fare of any class, then the deemed fare will be rupees 6,000. So this is one scheme which has been announced to boost up the demand, and this will be applicable for the government sector as well as for the private sector, especially the organized sector where LTC is a part of cost to company. The second is which is the festival demand. If you can remember, during the Sixth Pay Commission, there was a provision for a festival advance, but Seventh Pay Commission decided to go against that. Now the government has given one-time option, and one-time option is said that rupees 10,000 will be given as the festival advance. You need to spend on or before March 31st, 2021. It will be in the form of prepaid or preloaded RuPay card, and whatsoever amount you spend as on 31st March 2021, that will be deducted from your salary in 10 installments, and you don't have to pay any interest on that. So this is for the employee's point of view. The LTC one for both government employee as well as the private sector employee. The second one is mainly for the government employee.
What are the kind of expenses that can be set against this LTC benefit that people would have got? And how much money do you think will be pumped into the economy because of this particular move?
If we talk about this LTC thing, the only condition is, as I told you, that you need to spend 3 times of airfare. Under the LTC thing, there are 2 components. One is the fare and the second one is the leave encashment. The fare thing is a tax-free and the leave encashment is a taxable. So you can take leave encashment up to 10 days. So there, if you want to take benefit, you need to spend 300 rupees, get the benefit of tax exemption for rupees 100. So this is the key point of this scheme. The amount which you mentioned is something around 28,000 crore rupees expected from the government side, and if private sector employees are also going for that, then another 28,000 can be expected worth of demand to be generated in the economy.
There is this whole thing of preloaded RuPay card. The advance will be given through this card. So do you have to have that kind of card or anybody can avail it?
the government who will give you that prepaid or the preloaded RuPay card, and that will be loaded with rupees 10,000, and that needs to be spent as on before March 31st, 2021. That is the only condition. It is available for all kind of employee, whether it is a grade 4 employee or the senior officer. The basic purpose behind rupees 10,000 festival allowance is that during the festival, especially during Navratri and Deepavali, people used to buy some white good like washing machine or some kind of mixer grinder. So that 10,000 rupees you can buy these kind of white goods, and that is expected to boost the demand for these goods. And that will certainly help the overall consumer goods industry. That is the basic purpose behind.
You mentioned that these are the measures that will stimulate consumer demand, and these are the steps being taken on the consumer side. Now, certain steps have also been taken for the extra capital expenditure. Can you elaborate on that as well?
There are two parts of capital expenditure. One is for the states and second is by the center. And if you can remember, in May this year, the government decided to increase the borrowing limit from 7.8 lakh crore to rupees 12 lakh crore. So additional borrowing of rupees 4.2 lakh crore. And since then, there have been questions that where that money will be spent. So we are getting first installment of that money to be spent, that is rupees 25,000 crore to be spent by the central government on sectors like road, defense infrastructure, water supply, urban development, and also defense infrastructure related with domestically produced capital equipment. Just take one example, road and water supply. These two are very, very labor-intensive sectors. So if we are spending more money in these sectors, more employment can be generated, and that in turn will also boost the demand. So this is one part of the capital expenditure. The second part is by the state government. So what the center has said that it is going to provide 12,000 crore rupees of loan. That will be 50 years loan, and the state need not worry about debt servicing, because after 50 years they just go for the bullet payment. Bullet payment means you have to repay the principal as well as the interest in just one go after end of 50 years. So this is another expenditure benefit for the state. And the second thing is that this will be over and above the additional borrowing limit which was set during the Atmanirbhar package announcement. That time it was said state can borrow up to 5%. So this will be over and above that. And 12,000 crore is a very minuscule amount of total fiscal deficit. If you take 1 lakh crore, which is equivalent to 0.5%, so you can easily say that it is much, much less than 0.1% of the total fiscal deficit target.
So the total demand stimulus is working out to be around 73,000 crore. And the finance minister said in the press conference that given that the private sector spending through LTC tax benefit would be at least 28,000 crores, the overall demand boost could be more than 1 lakh crore. Mr. Sinha, what does this mean for the fiscal deficit situation and overall inflationary conditions in the country? How does it translate for the consumer?
We have already made a provision of 4.2 lakh crore of additional borrowing. And if you can remember, in the budget, the total fiscal deficit was 3.5% of GDP. And with the help of 4.2 lakh crore additional, the fiscal deficit is expected just for the central government around 6%. And if we take state government also, it can go up to 12%. So I don't think there will be impact on the fiscal deficit, because all the money which has been provided here are already factored in while going for the borrowing. The second thing about the inflation, I mean, if you talk about 1 lakh crore worth of spending, which is something not more than 0.5 or 0.4% of the GDP, it's not going to have much impact on the overall inflation, because already very, very subdued. And if some demand takes up, there will be little kind of push to the inflation, but that will not be that much, which will be very, very visible.
Can you also explain to our listeners that why is it the need of the hour that the government has to step in to boost the consumer demand amid this pandemic, where businesses are seeing lower economic activity? There is stress in the economy, not just India. But globally, the whole sentiment is a bit subdued. What is the basic purpose behind these moves? How will it help the economy?
If you take the first two stimulus, one was the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan, and then we were having Atmanirbhar Bharat. So during announcement of these two packages, the first question was asked about that how you are going to boost up the demand. And it was said that when we are spending more and more money in the rural area and among the poor section of the society, that will generate the demand. But we have not seen that kind of demand generation. What we were expecting that when you are spending money or when you are giving some kind of support to the urban middle class people, then the demand will get further boost, and demand especially for the white goods, especially for the automobile sector, because these two sectors are very, very labor intensive sector. And we also need to remember that this demand not just for one sector, it is a kind of cycle we are creating, because when the producers are going to produce more and more goods, that will certainly help more and more people to employment. That will give some kind of money to more and more people. They will spend and the demand will generate. So we will have positive circle kind of thing. What was expected that what we can do for the urban middle class, which will also help in giving demand boost to various other sectors. Rural demand, we have seen how the two-wheeler sales have gone up, how the tractor sales have gone up, how the FMCG sales have gone up, but we haven't seen much demand in the overall white goods and the automobile sector. There is a pent-up demand is there, but overall demand, the real demand, we can expect that after announcement of this package, there will be a real demand from the urban side, and that will help the overall automobile sector as well as the FMCG sector.
Now, of course, a lot of reliance of this plan is on the state spending and the private sector spending. Overall, how much of it do you see it actually getting translated and actual demand generation that will happen in the country?
Private sector spending in terms of investment, we may not see very soon, because the problem is that many of the private sectors are still having some kind of cash crunch. We may not see the kind of investment by the private sector in line with government spending. We will have some kind of change during the fourth quarter or during the first quarter of next fiscal, not immediately now. So there we will have to wait, because government alone cannot bring the entire demand at a very high level. It needs the support from the private sector also. And there's a normal theory is that when the government is spending ₹1, you can expect 2 rupees or 3 rupees from the private sector, but that will have some kind of lag. So we can expect during the fourth quarter of this fiscal or during the first quarter of next fiscal, we will have more and more investment from the private sector.
What more needs to be done? How does private sector need to complement the efforts of the government towards boosting consumer demand?
Private sectors have got too many things. If you start from September 2019, when the government announced tax benefit for the private sector, and at that time the tax was lowered for the new investment in greenfield, in the manufacturing sector, not in the services. From 2019 September, we are seeing a lot of encouragement or lot of boost for the private sector. But the problem is that during the pandemic, during the first 6 months of this fiscal, the cash flow was not that much. Now we are seeing some kind of improvement from various sectors after the replenishment of demand is taking place or replenishment of inventory is taking place. So more and more production is taking place. I think government has already announced so many things from the private sector. Now the private sector needs to come up with some clear investment plan. And I'm sure that when the demand will be there, their revenue will increase. When their bottom line and the top line will increase, there will be certainly some improvement there. And if you can remember, after the second quarter result announcement, many of the companies have said that they are going to restore wage cut. Some of the IT companies have said that they are going to give a kind of appraisal or the pay hike to the people. So that means they are getting money, and we can expect that that money, not just from the services sector, but from the manufacturing sector also, to be invested in the new projects, in the greenfield as well as the brownfield during the fourth quarter of this fiscal.
I see that the whole capital expenditure boost has made special provisions for the northeastern states and the Uttarakhand and Himachal states, and then the rest of the states. So what is the thinking behind such division?
See, the government has a policy which is called look-east policy. And when we talk about Northeast, so 12,000 crore, 2,500 to Northeast and Uttarakhand and Himachal, and especially for Northeast, 1,600 crore. I think the basic purpose is just to boost some kind of manufacturing activities more and more in Northeastern. We all know that Uttarakhand and Himachal, they have industrial clusters. They are doing well. And if you can remember, we are seeing a lot of development on organic farming in northeastern states. If that can be done in a very organized manner, so this kind of money can help this kind of activities in northeast, which will have overall impact on the economy of those states.
This move is certainly going to bring a lot of cheer to the urban middle class, as you said, and a lot more sections of the society will be looking hopefully towards the government for some incentive to boost consumer demand in the coming days. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ruchika.
You were listening to a discussion on Finance Minister's press briefing on economic issues. The participants were Shishir Sinha, economic analyst, and Ruchika Chitravanshi, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.